Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 1st, 2021 meeting of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors. My name is Corey Meyer and I'll call the meeting to order. I'll now have township staff play a quick announcement.
Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township meeting. All participants are informed that this meeting is being recorded. Due to COVID-19 and Governor orders in gathering, person attendance for this meeting is being limited to a maximum of 25 people who are observing social distancing. Additionally, based upon the order of the Secretary of Health regarding this coverage, all participants in the public are required to wear unless they fit into one of the orders. When speaking on social distance, participants may remove their ring. Therefore, meeting is also offered virtually utilizing which is cloud-based for video and video conferencing. The Zoom is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling. The public is also observing Township's YouTube channel. Expecting to utilize the public meetings and after the COVID-19 crisis. Please to check out the website calendar for these meetings. Agendas for the public meetings will also on the township website and posted front. Will record the meeting and available for viewing the town website and YouTube channel. Every effort made to the live website are working. It takes no responsibility for and can be liable for the ability of streaming in part or for technical issues beyond its control. Live streams and recordings of the protected by copyright. Access to live streams and recordings is provided for personal and non-commercial use. Video and audio not be altered, reposted, or republished with permission of East Lampeter. It suggested that all participants Zoom their microphone in the meeting they wish to speak, make a motion or vote. All votes will be taken by roll call so that they can be properly recorded. In order to accommodate public comment meeting, it will be accepted public comment in writing or via email. Instructions for the submission of public site. Those public comment will be required and press in order for their comments to be read into will not into. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and recorded. Will be posted to the township YouTube for calling them to order and identifying other present in the meeting room who's joined the meeting Zoom. Chairman confirm those members joined by Zoom can.
Okay. As I called the meeting to order in the room also, I have Supervisor Dave Buckwater, Vice Chair John Blowers, Supervisor Ethan Demi, and Supervisor Glenn Everly is not present tonight. In the room also, we have Ralph Hutchison, Township Manager, supporting the supervisors, and Tara Hitchens, Director of Planning, on the Zoom. Okay, please join me in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic in which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have public comment for non-agenda items only. Do we have anyone here for public comment for non-agenda items? Nothing via email as well. Okay, we'll move on. Is that Charlie up there as well? I didn't mention Charlie. And thank you, Charlie Thomas, joining as well from staff as well. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a consent agenda. We have 4A, approval of the minutes of the Monday, February 8th, 2021 regular meeting. We have 4B, approval to pay invoices from all funds, a total of $550,126.29. Two items of note for those bills. We have 197,895,099 to the city of Lancaster for quarterly sanitary sewer flow charges. $29,975.10 to American Rock Salt Company for winter road salt supply. Hoping that is the last. Hopefully we don't have to use any more, but it sounds like we might be getting a little tonight. And we have 4C, request for reduction of financial security for 2506 South Cherry Lane, which is the Gibson project. And that will, it's going from $29,298.94, a recommended reduction of $13,762.90, leaving a remaining balance of $15,536.04. So those are the three items for the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion's been moved by Mr. Blowers,
Second.
second by Mr. Buckwalter. Any comments from the board? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, since we are all here, we can do one vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have Chief Dave Keynes for the Lafayette Fire Company 2020 Annual Report. Thanks for joining us in person. Chief Keynes, I was looking at the IAR app that you put on my phone. You had roughly 12 calls in the last 3 days, approximately.
Yes.
Yes, it's been a crazy. I know Chief Gribble's on there as well. I was seeing all the calls that they were getting as well. It's been a crazy couple of days, so thank you.
We went for a lull there for a while and it picks up and it's probably going to drop off again. You never can tell. The books that I had gave you guys to take a look at, and supervisors, thank you for allowing me to make this presentation this evening. The books basically start off with what was reviewed at the forecast meeting from the township at the beginning of February, which is the current conditions of both the activities for Lafayette for 2020 and what's on the horizon for 2021. And there's the first 2 pages there break it out between Lancaster Township and East Lampeter Township as far as call volume. As we move forward into the book there, we get to the executive summary. I'm not going to read it word for word, but this was a bad year. And in emergency services, it was down, as far as call volume, which is a good thing.
Right.
When we talk about call volume, last year it was 601 calls for service, and in 2020 it was 100 less. It was down to 501 calls. For East Lampeter Township, it was 382 calls for the township versus 461 the prior year, 2019. And for Lancaster Township, it was about half. It was 93 down to 55. Mutual aid, though, services for assisting other fire companies, that was actually up from a 2019 number of 47 mutual aid calls to 64 in 2020. Average firefighters per call were at 9, which is pretty steady number year over year. We average between 9 and 10. Combined property losses for Lancaster Township and East Lampeter Township were $976,750. The year prior, it was closer to 2.1 million.
Wow.
As you look through the book, it's broken out into Lafayette, responders per call, statistics, fire losses, East Lampeter Township alone, Lancaster Township, and then notable call review or notable review, how we're interacting with the community. There's a lot of data in here. I'm not going to cover it all. I can tell you that the training hours were down. Normally we have about 3,000, 2,500 training hours annually. There were a lot of training classes that were canceled due to COVID, and COVID has seemed to be the big key here in 2020. 949 and a half training hours. So it's about 1/3 of what we normally would have. As far as the community goes, we had some big events as far as birthday drive-bys. That was a new type of request for us. And we'll do a drive-by for someone's birthday for a donation.
And I'll tell you, the donations range from a little bit to a lot, in my
That's great.
opinion. But it's something new for us. Never had birthday drive-bys in the past. Back in the early COVID days, we went out and we rallied the community. That was great. We did a parade and people really came out. We advertised, people really came out of their homes, cheered us on. You know, we had signs made up for us, and I'll tell you, just the community alone coming out for that was great for that rally. We talk about financials. Community contributions overall from our fund drive are down. However, we had a few significant donors step up this year to the plate. Some of the businesses have really come through like they have not in previous years. So overall, I would say that we did well in our funding initiatives. But if you just want to talk about our fund drive mailers to the residents, we were down. And that's all laid out. The numbers are in the book. The new fire engine we have on order, we're excited about that. We're replacing a 43-year-old piece of apparatus. We'll be modernizing our fleet to the township here. And we're excited to bring a new piece to the township, probably in the late April, early May timeframe. Year-end reports. The book is going to differ as it did in past years. We were using what was called Firehouse 5 software before, and we have switched over to emergency reporting software. So the reports look a little bit different with different pie charts and just the way the information played out. It's just a much more up-to-date system than what we were using with the Firehouse 5 software. If you have any questions as you look through the book, please feel free to email or call me. If you have any questions now, I'll take them now. I can tell you when we talk about recruitment and retention, we have started an actual recruitment and retention committee at Lafayette, and we're really putting a hard focus on that. We seem to get as many applications as we lose members. So it's kind of a turnover that stays constant. We'd really like to grow our membership though. One area that we have grown our membership is in administrative personnel. We have a lot of people that are coming in, they don't want to be firefighters, but they want to help us, right? So we've got a lot of marketing people, that kind of thing, who have come to help.
Yeah, I was going to say, of course, I follow social media on all the volunteer companies, but you guys do an excellent job posting stuff, and all 4 companies do, frankly, an excellent job on social media, and I know that I'm sure helps somewhat with getting volunteers, but I know it's a lot of work also posting and taking pictures and doing all that. It's not just firefighting, right? It's the accounting, it's putting this report together, it's marketing, it's all sorts of different skills that you could use. So it's good to hear that you are getting some administrative help as well. I'm sure you definitely need people to jump on the trucks and engines to get out there, but I'm sure it's also helpful to get those.
We're open to both sides.
Yep, good. Any questions for Chief?
Good report.
Yeah,
Dave,
great
as
report.
always.
I always love going through it. I have all my past copies, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Any questions for us? Anything we can help in the short term? Yep.
I can tell you that the 4 fire companies working together. We had that farm rescue incident back in July last year. Actually submitted to the county firemen's association for an accommodation to recognize all the 4 fire companies. So we'll see if we are selected for that or not.
Yeah,
but
great.
It was just a great effort working together.
Yep.
The EMS, the police department, and all the fire agencies.
Yep.
Even the township representatives, as far as Charlie was out there, Charlie Thomas, and it just, everybody came together in a quick fashion to take care of an incident that had a positive outcome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
I would
Yes, please.
suspect, Dave, and we can talk about this at ESC too, but I suspect as COVID starts to recede and visitors, tourism starts to pick up, a lot of additional activity out in the highway that wasn't there last year. So it does change what
Yeah.
happens.
As Corey said, 12 calls in the past.
Yeah.
3 days.
Oh, yeah. A lot of accidents.
We're at 75 so far for this year. So
Is that right?
We're a little less than what we should be, but I'll take it.
Yeah, Yeah.
There's other things to do.
definitely. Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from anyone on the phone? Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks,
Dave.
Dave. Good to see you.
Hey, Terry, you can hear me fine? I sound okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 6, which is presentation regarding complete streets, Lancaster County Planning Department. I believe we have, is it Alex and Laura and Christiana? Is that how you say it? Christiana?
I don't see Christiana.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's not on the call tonight. It's just Laura
Okay.
and myself.
Sounds good. Alex, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having us this evening, and we started this conversation with township staff a while ago about the opportunities about exploring a complete streets policy for East Lampeter Township, and we thought it would be good to come out and just do kind of a little presentation to the Board of Supervisors, just to kind of explain what a complete streets policy is, how it's consistent with other planning efforts like Places 2040 and the Lancaster County Active Transportation Plan, and kind of next steps on how we can assist the township in moving forward with a complete streets policy. So thank you again. Laura and I are going to tag team this presentation, so I won't be here. You won't be hearing me the whole time, so you'll hear Laura as well. So can I share my screen, or how do we want to do the PowerPoint?
That's what I was
Yeah,
just
we'll give you-
about to ask.
We'll give you access.
Okay, great.
Just give a second.
You should be good now, Alex.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here, full screen mode. Okay, great. Hopefully it's the right one. You don't want to see me see my shopping efforts for a Toyota RAV4, so let me pick the presentation. My wife and I are we're in the market for an SUV. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Well, so just to yeah, so I covered that. So what are complete streets? And this is just some imagery across the township in a couple different places. But really, what complete streets are is kind of a different approach to how we to transportation planning in general, and it's, and I have to share this funny anecdote. Another township official that you know, I won't say where, but when when talking about complete streets, as I'm trying to say, this individual said, yeah, we got complete streets. They connect from point A to point B. They connect 2 streets together, and you know, it has curbing, but really what it is that complete streets is rather than just for automobiles, complete streets incorporates other users, pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and it's very, it can be holistic, and as you can see on the PowerPoint, it's rather than a list of requirements for every individual road, it's very context sensitive. So the kind of treatments for complete streets would be different on, say, Hartman Station Road than it would be on Old Philadelphia Pike or Lincoln Highway. Different types of users for that road versus, you know, in the more rural areas of the township versus in the urban and village growth areas where you may have more pedestrian traffic. So just to kind of move forward here, with complete streets, it applies to transportation policies as well as projects. So it's not just all planning, there is an implementation aspect to it. And again, as I've mentioned, it's integrating in multiple different modes of different types of users for roads, depending on the context and the environment in which that road is in. So it integrates planning, design, construction, operation, maintenance of all of our transportation networks. It ensures that streets are safe for people of all ages and abilities. So that's including sidewalks, bicycling, again, context sensitive. It balances the different needs of different modes. It could be anything from commercial freight to cars, scooters, which would be of high demand, say in the more rural areas of your township, as well as again bicycle and pedestrian, and then also public transit is also part of this too. Considering the fact that there's a number of Red Rose Transit routes that go through the township, particularly along Lincoln Highway, there's ways to integrate. It's part of a complete street too. So you would have bus stops and I think actually in our Places 2040 plan, we actually have, and as well as the county's active transportation plan, we've actually identified a number of mobility hubs, which are kind of intersection points between where you would have transit stops as well as maybe bicycle parking and also bus shelters, and kind of integrate that together so that you don't necessarily have to walk to the bus stop. You can ride your bike, leave your bike there, and get on the bus. And it also, Complete Streets does have an element of supporting local land uses while encouraging economic development. So what do I mean by that? Well, think of the villages of, for instance, in East Lampeter, Smoketown and Burdenhand. And there is something to be said from an economic development and redevelopment aspect, that if a complete street is in place and it's safer for pedestrians and other users besides those in automobiles, that can encourage more pedestrian traffic in say your village areas, particularly like Burdenhand, where you might have more foot traffic, and just making it safer for those users. And hopefully as COVID goes away, Lord willing, that we'll have more economic development opportunities, and that tourism that we've historically seen in this part of the county will pick up. And so it would be all the more relevant. So I'm going to pitch it over to Laura. So she's going to talk a little more about the context of Complete Streets.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so yeah, what are we talking about when we say complete streets? We wanted to give you some visual examples right here in the county, two of which you're looking at here are actually in East Lampeter Township. So just to point them out, you have the accessible accessible bus shelter in the top right-hand corner at the Target. And then you have the protected sidewalk there in the lower sort of middle area next to Tanger Outlets. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, and when we say complete streets, like Alex said, we really mean streets for everyone, and we're thinking about connectivity and moving people in every form, in every way that they travel along in the best and safest way possible. So we mean all abilities and all different types of transportation. The most important thing here is that it's easy for everybody to access different amenities, regardless of how they're traveling to those places. And just like Alex said, one of the most important things here to remember, and I think it's particularly important in East Lampeter Township, is that one size does not fit all communities. That context sensitivity is everything when it comes to complete streets. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, so Alex mentioned our active transportation plan a moment ago, and what you're looking at here is a graphic from the active transportation plan, which basically took the 7 character zones that were identified in Places 2040 and sort of distilled them down to 3 basic character zones. And one of the neatest things about East Lampeter Township is that you really see all of these represented here. You actually really see all 7 character zones that are shown in Places 2040 represented in the township, which Alex and I realized when we were talking earlier. But just to give you an idea, so the natural and especially agricultural areas, that's really any place outside of the designated growth areas. The suburban, you see a large swath of that along 896 north and south of 30. And then the urban, especially the rural community we're thinking of here, that's the villages that Alex just mentioned, Burdenhand and Smoketown. And the improvements to focus on in these corridors, you have your priority road corridors. So in East Lampeter Township, that would be state routes 340, Route 30, 896. And then looking at these character zones along these different corridors to try to figure out what, again, bringing up that term context sensitivity, what makes the most sense there. So in areas, in rural areas, you're thinking about wider shoulders and bicycle route signs because you have a lot of non-motorized transportation going on along the shoulders there. And then in the more suburban areas, you're trying to think about walkability, enabling people to walk from one amenity to another or to take their bicycles in areas where maybe they're not typically, it's not walkable, even if a neighborhood is within, almost a stone's throw of a shopping center. And then in the urban areas, you have you want to make sure that there's sidewalk connectivity everywhere, not these sidewalks to nowhere in the villages in East Lampeter Township. Okay, next slide, please, Alex. Thank you. So like we mentioned before, you probably all know this very well, so this is no news for anyone. This is Places 2040 is the county comprehensive plan. It was adopted in October of 2018. And the main thrust of the plan is to protect our unique identity and to make sure that we're careful in our planning, so we're preserving our farmland and concentrating growth in areas where it makes the most sense in the county. We have 5 big ideas, 26 policies, and 7 catalytic tools in this plan, several of which are applicable in the case of a complete streets policy. So the most obvious would be one of those 7 catalytic tools is literally implementing complete streets. And then also 3 of the big ideas are sort of applicable here. One is creating great places, and that's all about livability, quality of life, and designing communities that are putting people first, making sure they're safe and livable. And then also the big idea of connecting people, place, and opportunity, which is all about making it safer and easier for people to get from A to B, from home to jobs, from home to school, from jobs to shopping centers, making sure that's accessible to everyone, including those that don't have motorized transportation. Next slide, please, Alex. Okay, and then Places 2040 implementation, the third big idea that I hadn't yet mentioned is thinking beyond boundaries. And that is an overarching goal that kind of ties together everything. And it's all about, one of the primary things there is making sure that your regulations are consistent with your neighbor's regulations. So for example, I think Alex is going to talk about this later, so sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, but
not at all.
okay, thank you.
You're good.
For example, the city of Lancaster and Lancaster Township both have complete streets policies. So the idea here would be to sort of weave in, East Lampeter Township did adopt a complete streets policy, to weave it in with theirs to make sure they're complementary. The other thing is creating networks of complete streets at the regional level. Same thing again, to think of congestion and how are these systems all working together. Alex had a great idea earlier. He mentioned that can be something that can be brought into the language of the subdivision and land development ordinance, as well as sort of a new process for both new development and then redevelopment too. And he mentioned Rockvale as a perfect example. Where that can be integrated. And then also green infrastructure. While you might think of like stormwater management as not necessarily being something that's really connected to complete streets, it actually is tied in on 2 fundamental levels. One of which is the fact that a lot of green infrastructure projects result and are aimed at traffic calming. So Alex brought up Walnut Street, Mulberry Streets in Lancaster City. I also know in my neighborhood on the East End, right off of New Holland Avenue, I benefit greatly from this. I walk my dog around the neighborhood, and if people try to drag race along, you have these bump outs and these stormwater management areas that narrow the roads for the drivers. They're still very drivable, but it forces them to slow down. They don't have a nice like open drag racing area. So I personally appreciate that a lot. Also, the secondary part of that is that when you apply for funding, like for example, the county's MPO competitive funding program, which was previously called the Smart Growth Transportation Program, that's something where when you have green infrastructure woven into your policies, into your application for transportation policies, that's actually something that ups your score in terms of them grading the different applications. I think I think that's everything. Oh, I wasn't exactly sure where to put this, but I just want to notice this was something that Tara brought up when we were talking about this presentation. And I think it's really important to remember too. Just because a street could or should have a sidewalk, a municipality once if they adopt a complete streets policy, that doesn't mean that they are now legally required to implement this improvement at any one single time. And that's especially true if the funds aren't in hand. But it's not something that you're locked into. It's just sort of a guiding document. It's another thing to make for a more livable community. And oh, just those in the chart there in the bottom, that is in Places 2040 in the sort of how do we get there? How do we grade ourselves? Sort of how we're going to achieve these big ideas. At the end of the Thinking Beyond Boundaries big idea section, there is a spot that actually calls out what we want for complete streets, which is increasing the number of municipalities that have them, and then and thinking about it again on that regional level. And I think I'm going to throw it back to Alex now.
Right. Thank you, Laura. So this is just you see here, as you know, there's been a lot of planning work that's already been sort of related and allied with complete streets thinking and policies. And to add to this list, our Places 2040 County Comprehensive Plan. And I believe I was looking at your agenda. I believe you're going to have some conversation later on about the streetscape, Lincoln Highway streetscape, as well as an update on the GLHP, which relates to the active transportation plan. So there's already, like for instance, the Lincoln Highway streetscape plan has already begun thinking about this. And so this is not a new thing, but it's integrated. It has already been discussed. And so there's a lot of consistency with all the planning efforts that the township's already undertaken that can really be rolled into this. And not to mention, well, like what Laura was talking about with Places 2040, definitely, and as well as the active transportation plan. So just to look at next steps for the township, obviously what we would do, what we would help the township with is just kind of review of related township planning documents, namely the comprehensive plans and the streetscape plan, as well as our county-wide plans like Places 2040 and the ATP. Just to look for opportunities of consistency. Obviously, from the county's perspective, we've identified in Places 2040 as priority corridors, which would be Lincoln Highway, Old Philadelphia Pike, and perhaps even the Strasburg Pike, and even the new, I guess, the little very small piece of 23 that goes through East Lampeter. Those are our priority corridors. ATP, the Active Transportation Plan, takes it one step farther and actually recommends suburban or rural or urban treatments for bicycle and pedestrian friendliness based on those corridors plus a few others within the township. So those we would start with those. But I should mention that that complete streets would not be necessarily limited to your major corridors. This is also for local streets. As you get new developments, then this is a perfect opportunity to incorporate complete streets into those new developments, and you could exact those types of things, like Laura mentioned, through the subdivision land development ordinance for new development. So I think it's important to note that this is also just for local streets as well. And then also, as Laura mentioned, a review of other Lancaster metro area municipal planning efforts. As Laura mentioned, Lancaster City and Lancaster Township already have existing complete streets policies. And then I guess form that plan, and then also begin to draft a complete streets policy. And then as that's developed, there's a couple of different ways that you can tackle this. One of the ones that I think would probably be most obvious is utilizing your official map as you have new road projects or other transportation or bicycle projects, to use the official map to help you prioritize projects, particularly for the TIP and for the Smart Growth Transportation Fund, which Laura mentioned earlier. Also working this into your CIP and your pavement maintenance plan. This is actually something that I've had a little experience with. Prior to working at Lancaster County, I was the city planner in Hagerstown, Maryland. And we adopted a complete streets policy there. And this is exactly what we did. We incorporated bicycle lanes into the city's CIP. And so when the street got repaved, we evaluated it at that time and found if it was appropriate to put bike lanes on at that time, that's what we did. And then as well as any access management policy that the township may have. And that's our presentation in a nutshell. We'd be happy to answer any questions from the board or from staff. I can stop sharing
Great.
my presentation. There we go.
Yeah, thank you, Alex and Laura. Questions from board members? Yeah.
If there was a question.
Yeah, just repeat that,
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Yep, sorry,
yeah.
sorry. Yep, I just said no questions, just, I think it makes sense for, where we've been in all of our planning efforts and where we'll be going and especially the regional approach and making sure that all of our pedestrian, roadways all are connected together and that the metropolitan area is, being sort of interlocked by a full plan of this nature. So I fully support it, Corey.
Yeah. Ethan, comment?
I think rhetorically, the concept of a complete street sounds good on when we talk about it, but I think when we actually get into putting the finances into building those out, we start to run into where some places, not every place, but places that have complete streets tend to overbuild the infrastructure, and then there's no good plan for the long-term maintenance costs of those things. So the idea of making, in my mind, making streets more human-centered as opposed to complete is a much better approach. There's some streets that just don't make sense to be complete. Some streets aren't really safe to walk on, and some streets aren't safe to drive an 18-wheeler on. Complete means that you're supposed to make access for all of those uses. So I think I'd rather focus on traffic calming and slowing the traffic in those neighborhood environments rather than, if you have cars moving slowly, you can walk on the road. You don't actually need a sidewalk or a curb. But if we've designed a street to people go 55 miles an hour in a 25 zone, then yes, it makes sense to build up a sidewalk, but I'd rather slow the cars down. So I guess the devil's in the details when you actually build out that policy. Is it something where most of our design in the 7 years I've been involved, I haven't seen any project come through where we haven't advocated for everything that was in the presentation that we've heard tonight.
Yeah.
But is it worth the time and effort of building out a policy to stipulate these things when we're already doing all of those things? But if it's something we have to check the box to get the funding for, to get the carrot, it depends on how flexible it is. So it's one of those ones of a complete streets policy that starts to mandate things that just don't make sense. You can Google image search complete streets and see a lot of highly engineered sidewalks and medians to nowhere. And we could find examples of those if you drive around Lancaster. So I like the concept, but I'd rather focus on human size streets that make sense as opposed to saying it has to fit all the uses all the time.
Yeah, the Dave, comments? Sorry.
No.
Yeah, so we have in our packets, we have examples from, looks like, I'm sorry, I had a few. We had Borough of Elizabethtown, stated 2014, and we also have what appears to be a draft for East Lampeter. Is this the model from the county? The one that
There was a model from the county included, and then there was the draft that we came up with in 2000.
Say it again. Say it again, Terry. Yeah,
Sorry,
that's right,
there
cut
was-
out.
there
Say it
was
again.
a model from Lancaster County Planning Commission.
Got it.
It was LCPC at the time. And then there was the draft policy that East Lampeter came up with that was not adopted. And then there was the adopted version of Elizabethtown Borough.
Got it. Yeah. So the draft one that was not approved that has East, for East Lampeter does have a clear exception to applying the complete streets policy to a specific roadway must be approved by the Board of Supervisors with documentation. So, I mean, I agree with Ethan, right? Like, any rule can be followed, and it could also be implemented in a way that isn't beneficial to any user. But, in theory, again, I think every road, Walnut Street extension that's being built, very shortly, Lincoln Highway, streetscape plan clearly has all these concepts in it. Again, I'm for the concept, but again, I don't want to, create any additional problems. So,
I mean, my parents' neighborhood in neighboring township, you've got 30-foot cart
Yeah.
paths and then grass and then sidewalks. And it's posted speed limit is 25 and you can fly 100 miles an hour down that road. Other neighboring township, West Lampeter, has
tight.
very tight,
Yeah.
the Mill Creek development has sidewalks as well in sections where there's not a sidewalk, but there's a walking path.
Right.
And they don't have a official curb, it's rocks, and
Yeah.
it's a very, very narrow cart path, and you can walk in those streets very safely, which you do when there's snow everywhere. So those are examples of if we can write a policy that allows for
Flexibility.
very narrow street design. I just don't want to keep building 4-lane roads with giant sidewalks that no one walks on because we don't allow the uses that people walk to the stores to go to anyway. So focusing on the human part of the design, I think it's possible. Staff would have to give us feedback on whether they can draft a policy that allows for a wide degree of variance. But I would say from where I sit, staff's been doing this in all of our planning for as long as I've been here.
Yep. Agreed. Any comments from staff?
If I could just say
Sure.
real quick. Yeah, thank
Yep.
you. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Ethan's comments. Definitely a complete streets policy doesn't mean every treatment on every road. Obviously you wouldn't put sidewalks on, say, like Hartman Station Road. It's not feasible. It's not going to get used. And actually, with the complete streets policy that I had familiarity with, that I mentioned from my former municipality, most of the improvements in that case were done along some of the corridors that were really in major need of I would say getting more alternative transportation uses or modes to allow those modes. And yes, absolutely, land use does play into it. If you're integrating mixed use development, say for instance, the possibilities of like say Rockville Outlets redeveloping, it makes sense to do more alternative transportation improvements along, say, Lincoln Highway versus some other roads, because that's where people are going to be. So I totally agree with that statement. And actually, we've some policies. If you actually Google the term livable streets, that's actually I guess I won't say alias, but a synonym for complete streets as well. Because some people say, well, that complete streets actually has the wrong connotation. It's actually livable streets because it's built for the human environment. And I also just want to mention real briefly, if you're not familiar with a freeware program called Street Mix, it's actually would help you visualize what complete streets would look like, and you can actually define it's just like a web browser freeware program where you can actually like define your right of way. And you could put your travel lanes and your bicycle lanes and your transit stop and your sidewalks and your bike lanes in it, and based on your road width. It's a really cool tool to use. I think we've used it a little bit with the Lancaster Active Transportation Plan. I think there might be some screenshots from that program in the plan, and I know we used it in my previous experience. but it is a helpful tool to help visualize what a complete street would look like in a different contexts. So yeah, I would encourage you to, if you ever get some time, you're interested, take a look at it.
That's great. Alex, give us the address one more time. The web address.
It is actually, I believe it's called Street Mix. It's actually, I believe it's a Dutch program, but you can convert it from to, I think it's street. I think it might just be, I apologize. I didn't.
All right. Put you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries. Yep, it's called streetmix.net.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Great. Any other comments from staff? Touch.
Two questions, if I may.
Sure.
Is there a time frame that county planning has set on for trying to get these policies in place and still be eligible for all of the applications that we want to make?
I don't think we have a set time frame. I mean, maybe by 2040, but
Well, I think the reason that Hutch is asking that, because last year when the SGT funding opportunity came out, one of the guidelines was that you have a complete street policy.
okay. Yeah, and I apologize. That would be probably a question for Christiana. She's far more familiar with the with the TIP process and the SGD than probably Laura or myself. But yeah, obviously as we move forward, we're encouraging municipalities to as a way to help implement Places 2040. I think there probably will be more emphasis put on as it relates to transportation, how are municipalities implementing ARC7 catalytic tools as it relates to transportation. So so that might be, I think probably moving forward, if it could be that applications are favored, or not say favored, but maybe ranked or maybe prioritized based on how it's implementing Places 2040 and its catalytic tools. But I don't have a specific time frame on that. But
I've made a note to follow up with Christiana about that specifically.
Great, thank you. My other question, and I don't know that I expect you to have an answer to this one either, but most of the priority corridors that you mentioned, of course, are state highways. And so the township has more limited influence on changes to be made on state highways. Do you have any thoughts on how we could improve that process with PennDOT?
yeah, that's a great, again, probably I'll have to punt to the person who's not with us tonight, but probably a great question for our land use and transportation team. I think we have a pretty good relationship with PennDOT, and I think it's working with them to try and see the the benefits of this, and so it's not just roads built for cars going 60 miles an hour. So I think we'll make a note to follow up with our land use and transportation team and to try and address that question more specifically.
Thank you.
Any other questions from staff or the board or the public? Okay. Thank you, Alex and Laura. Appreciate it. I'm sure you'll hear from us soon, and we'll look forward to the follow-up, and hopefully we can get a resolution passed.
Sure thing. Thank you. And always it's a pleasure to come before you, and yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing Laura and myself, and as we work together with East Lampeter Township. So thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
It might be worth noting, and I don't think they did at the beginning, but in the county's arrangement of assignments, Alex is assigned for a portion of the township, which is within the urban growth
Okay.
area. And Laura
Oh, great.
the eastern side. So that's
Yeah.
why they're
Got
the
it.
two people that
Yeah.
we have contact
Well,
with.
welcome. Thanks for joining the team.
Yep, thank you.
I'm sure. Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have 7A, request to modify approval conditions regarding the King Lot add-on plan 2019. Is there anyone here for that item? No. Hutch, you want to give us a little context?
Sure. The board conditionally approved a lot add-on plan for this property in Ronks off of Hedgewood. And the purpose of the plan was essentially to add a small sliver of ground from one property to another. It's a family arrangement. And both of those properties that were involved in that add-on share driveways with neighboring properties. And the ordinance requires that in those cases where you have a shared driveway situation, that you have some sort of agreement that sets forth access and maintenance and those sorts of things with the driveways. And the owners, the plan preparers have pursued those agreements, and they have it on for the two properties that are involved on the one side. They don't yet have it for the two properties on the other side. They have it for one. So basically, they have 3 of 4 signatures at this point in time, and they're working on the 4th presently. So they're asking that the conditions be modified so that because they don't really have control over absolutely getting the 4th signature, that if they don't, the condition would still allow them to record the plan and move forward with a lot add-on. Is that correct, Tara?
That is correct. The other thing they're asking for is reinstatement of the conditions, because quite honestly, the Kings had to hire an attorney to move forward with these driveway access easement and maintenance arrangements, and did not do so in as timely of a manner as they could have. So they did not return a letter accepting the conditions of your prior approval in a timely fashion.
Understood. Okay. Questions from board, staff?
I certainly would recommend, reinstating
Yeah,
the plan,
sure.
the timing.
Yeah.
I don't think that
Right.
is an issue for us.
Right.
But, perhaps if the board wanted to give them some additional time to see if they can acquire the 4th signature before modifying the condition, that would be an option for you. So,
yeah,
it's our understanding that the 4th property is a rental property, so the landlord is a real estate company, I guess.
Mhm.
So it's not like there's a
Individual
broken
neighbor.
relationship or
Right,
something
right,
between
right.
neighbors or anything.
Right.
So hopefully, I think, that will
Yeah.
progress and resolve
Yeah.
itself. But
Yeah.
um,
I mean, just reading the letter from their attorney, it sounds like time is of the essence. They want to move forward. So that's
That's true.
definitely a piece of it. I'm assuming everyone's in favor of reinstating the plan. I think we can get past that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really it comes down to either, Hutch's option of providing more time to the landowner to continue to get the signature. It sounds like, again, in the letter from the attorney, that they are attempting. It's just doesn't sound like they can't just walk down to their neighbor and get a signature. It's going through whoever the actual owner is. So either providing more time or, waiving that requirement, which, clearly there's risk there. I remember based on the conversation that we had when Mr. Fry was here representing the applicant, that was a concern of ours at that point. There should be some sort of documentation of this agreement between the homeowners, landowners.
But
Ethan.
if we don't reinstate.
That's correct. reinstating and then modifying another one so that they finish it up. At some point. Okay, so Ethan reinstate and continue to attempt to get signatures, like move forward,
But not require it.
and not require it.
Yep. Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to reinstate the conditions of the King add-on plan, modifying the condition for shared access easements to continue to make reasonable efforts, but not require all parties to sign.
Okay,
I'll
motion
second.
was made, second by
Second.
John. Any other comments? Any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have new business A8A, request for waiver of land development planning, Bosch, 1706 Hempstead Road. I don't think there's anyone here for that item either. Is that correct?
There isn't, Sarah, would you explain? what's going on?
Sure, absolutely. There is an additional almost 1,100 square feet of a mezzanine being constructed or proposed to be constructed at 1706 Hempstead Road. It's all interior to the building, but it is additional space that would be used by what is now Bosch as the tenant, and therefore was required to come before you for a waiver of land development. The Planning Commission did act on this as well, act favorably for this, with the condition that any future projects at the site would require a full land development plan.
Great. Any questions for Tara for this item?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, sure, please.
Yeah, sure. That we approve the request for waiver of land development planning for 1706 Hempstead Road, Bosch, based upon the recommendation from our planning commission.
Okay, great.
Second.
Good. Motion was made by John, second by Dave. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, we have a number of action items, and we're going to add an H, final 9 action item, which I'll get to in a few minutes. We have first resolution regarding Bridgeport Mobility Plan Amendment, 9A.
So in order to finish this planning effort, we needed some additional funds to help with the consultant needs to conduct public meetings, virtually and do some things to get this to the finish line. So we were able to, we asked for, and the MPO was able to provide additional funding for it, $20,000. So now PennDOT is requiring that the board adopt this resolution to amend the existing grant agreement to account for these funds.
Moved.
Okay, moved by Dave.
Second.
Second by John. Any other comments from the board? No comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. In 9B, authorization to defend appeal of zoning hearing board decision, Giovanni 2622 Lincoln Highway East.
This is the property that I guess most of us would refer to as the truck stop property
Mhm.
out on Lincoln Highway, generally across from what used to be Jenny's Diner. And they made application to expand the non-conforming use on the property. The zoning hearing board denied that application, and now the property owner has appealed that decision to court. And so in general terms, it's up to the board whether or not that decision by the zoning hearing board would be defended. And then, if it would be further appealed, the township can continue to defend as needed. So would recommend that you authorize that defense of the zoning hearing board decision.
Hearing board decision.
Okay, motion made by Ethan,
Second.
second by John. Any other comments from the board? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor for this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, new cable TV franchise agreement, engagement of special counsel regarding Shenandoah Cable Television LLC.
We just recently learned that Shenandoah Cable Television has entered into a cable TV franchise agreement with Lancaster Township.
Yep.
And they're entering into the market in Lancaster County and contacting other municipalities in the county. We will be one of them. And so we'd like, to work with them just like we work with Comcast to establish a franchise agreement. Cohen Law Group is who we were working with on the cable, our legal costs associated with that representation. So there wouldn't be any net cost to the township.
Great.
So I'd recommend authorizing based upon the proposal received from the Cohen Law Group.
Approve the agreement for engagement with Cohen Law Group.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Dave, second by John. Any other comments from the board?
Glad to see competitive.
Yes.
The area.
Yes. Yes, I'll second the glad to see competitive nature from other.
Starlink is coming too. I already pre-ordered.
Hey, I'm assuming we can have multiple cable TV franchise agreements if we're talking to these.
We can have as many
They are
internet
not
providers
exclusive.
as we want. This is only if they're doing bundling internet and cable.
Okay, understood. Okay, great. So we have a motion made, second, a few comments. Any other comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, D, legal services regarding small wireless communication facilities. Hutch.
Again, township staff was recently contacted by Verizon, I guess. And they want to go forward with establishing small cell locations within public rights of way. And the FCC, not too awful long ago, set up a framework for how that is supposed to be set up. So when we got this agreement, I did forward it on to Cohen Law Group, who has expertise in this area, and asked them to provide a recommendation on how we would respond to this proposed agreement for small wireless facilities. And their recommendation was twofold. First, to amend the current zoning ordinance, which initially seemed a little odd to me because typically you think of that as regulating private property, but they said that that is within the framework, the best way to approach regulating these facilities. So they'd propose an amendment to the zoning ordinance and then help us with negotiating a more favorable agreement terms with Verizon. And they said we should also expect that there'll be other
Yeah,
companies
sure.
that will
That's
be
what I
coming
was-
in to do the same
Yeah.
thing. So again, I'd like to work with the folks at Cohen Law Group. They have expertise in this area.
Yep.
And work through that process with them to get ready for it.
Yep, understood. Okay. We have a motion.
Make
for
a
the
motion, we, board authorizes engagement of CLG for legal services of amending our zoning ordinance for small wireless communication facilities.
Second.
Motion made.
Now, would that include
Yes,
negotiating
the
a
negotiation.
better
Yes,
agreement?
negotiating.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a motion made by Ethan,
Second.
second by John. Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we have a resolution regarding peer grant application for the CV Region Recreation Plan.
The top recommendation from the Regional Park and Recreation Plan, Conestoga Valley Region Park and Recreation Plan, was to initiate an effort to see if we could create a regional entity to address recreation in the CV region. And the first step that was recommended there would be to apply for this peer-to-peer grant program. And expect that we would be awarded assistance through that program. They would assign a peer, a recreation professional, to come into the region and help the group talk about and work through whatever the issues might be in trying to set up a regional entity of some sort. And so the school district, Upper Laycock Township, have both adopted resolutions indicating that they'd like to go forward with this effort. West Earl has indicated that they would not like to go forward as part of the effort. So I'm ready, if the board would like us to submit that peer-to-peer grant application. It does require that East Lampeter would be sort of leading that effort. We'd submit the application, but you would need to adopt this resolution in order to authorize us to submit that to DCNR. And then assuming that it's successful, we would begin the process with the rest of the folks in the region.
And our local share would be approximately $333.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. I'm happy to see that plan moving forward, and I see Diane Tyson's on the Zoom as well. I know she was a part of that plan, so was I, and happy to see that we're moving forward if this gets approved.
Yeah. I'll make a
Okay,
motion if I can. Make a motion that we adopt a resolution authorizing the board to move forward with all three entities for the peer grant application for the CV Region Recreation Plan.
Great. Motion made.
Second.
Second by Ethan. Any other comments from the board? Okay, any comments from the public? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, we have DEP technical assistance request regarding yard waste recycling.
Result of the change at Manham Township's facility for yard waste recycling composting. We've received a lot of calls in the township office about where people are able to go with their yard waste. And there are options, and we've been giving information to the residents as they call, but DEP does have a technical assistance program available to us where they would essentially assign a consultant and put in effort up to a value of about $7,500 to assist the township in looking at what all the alternatives might be and how to best provide that service to the community. And so it would be an opportunity to review any and all options that are available to us, and then recommendations would be brought back to the board for your consideration before anything would move forward beyond that.
Okay.
And there's no charge to local governments. It's a pure,
It is.
just
it is,
apply and,
Correct.
yeah, okay. Any questions for Hutch? Okay. I'll accept the motion for the DEP technical assistance request.
I make a motion, we approve the application for assistance from DEP regarding the recycling technical assistance.
Great.
Second.
Second made by Dave, second by John. Any other comments from the board? Any other comments from the public? I would agree with Hutch. I've received multiple questions and comments about the compost park. So I'm happy that we're providing some information and also providing, hopefully getting some more assistance from the state on what our households can do. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay. G, bids for 2021 in-place paving materials.
Charlie and the Public Works Department put out our bids for paving this year and received those bids this past Friday and provided you with a tabulation of the 5 bids that were received. The low bid was from Alan Myers for $1 per square yard of milling and $68 per ton of material in place. This was a lot better pricing than we got last year and a lot better pricing than we had expected to get.
Wow. Okay.
And so Charlie's also asking, I guess, that we, based upon this pricing and assuming the contractor would agree to the change order, that we add a couple of streets in the same areas where they're going to be working
Right.
anyway to sort of complete
Yep.
the Willow Acres area. And they would be Willow Glen Drive and Willowdale Drive. So
Yep.
they would be added. And then the total of all of that together would be in the neighborhood of $270,000. We had budgeted $304,000, so it would still be well within
Yep.
budget. So we recommend and ask you to award to Alan Myers for the low bid price as indicated.
Yeah. I'm assuming Willow Glen and Willowdale probably would have been done in the following year or maybe 1 or 2 years.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Charlie's going to be here at your next meeting
Yep.
to go over our robotics program,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
helping with pavement maintenance decisions. So maybe that's a question.
Yeah, sure.
For next time as well.
Yep.
The pricing is indicative of current market conditions. I guess I'm wondering, do we have projects that go beyond what we've described in our request for bid? And the 2 streets you added, do we have some beyond that we might want to consider?
Charlie, you there?
Maybe I didn't say that
There he
loud
is.
enough.
Yeah, no.
Unmuted.
No,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here. There is another road that is in real bad shape that we can look into to get pricing. Alpha Drive is one of them. Into our robotics is one of the worst streets we have. It's not a through street, but highly traveled with trash trucks. And so if the board wants me to, I can look into adding that road to this year also.
I'm embarrassed, but tell me where that is in the township.
Alpha?
Mill Cross Road.
Off of Millcross.
Between
Oh,
Creek Hill.
yeah.
It's closer to Creek as you approach Creek
Yeah.
Hill.
I know exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
goes
yeah.
off to the right
Yeah,
as you're going
goes
up the
right.
hill.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Interesting.
It's there's about 5 or 6 houses back there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's about 6 back there. That's correct.
Okay.
And I can show you next time at your next meeting when I do the robotics, some of the pictures and stuff that's going on there. But if it wants me to, I can pursue getting pricing for that, not in that street this year yet.
Be good.
Yeah, I mean, any estimate of what that would be just based on how long it is? I mean, I know you put some numbers on the, maybe John Brooks did it on Willow Glen and Willowdale, 25 for Willow Glen, 8,000 for Willowdale. Are we talking like another $10,000 or?
We're probably looking at 10 or less, yes.
Okay.
I have the robotics program up right now where I can get you an exact length. But I can pull that up and we can get that information to you.
Yeah, I mean, Dave, I'm assuming you were asking the question. It's if we believe prices are going to get increased.
I don't think they're gonna come down.
Right.
I think,
Right.
given market conditions, and,
Right.
today,
Yeah.
we might
Yeah.
as well take advantage of it.
Sure.
Yeah, we were basing our numbers on like last year, about $80 a ton of blacktop. And as you can see, they came in at $68 a ton.
Right.
Yeah, I would suggest that we
Yeah.
do have
Yeah.
staff bring that back to us, and let's see what we can get. Let's add
Yeah.
this alpha to it.
So
I'm
here-
assuming we need to approve this. Is there a certain period of time? Direct us. What do you think the best thing to do is?
Yeah, I would go ahead and award the bid
Yep.
as it's been received.
Yep.
And then we can talk to the
Allow staff.
contractor about change order to
Yeah.
add these other
Okay.
roads.
Okay, so allow staff to negotiate change orders and, okay,
Yeah, our expectation,
Yeah.
our hope, I guess I should say, would be that, we could use the same pricing for these additional
Yeah.
areas.
sure. Yep. Okay. Gentlemen, I'll accept the motion to approve the awarding of the bid and then to allow staff to negotiate change orders for these additional roads with direction that if we can add alpha in addition to these other two, Willow Glen and Willowdale. I guess I made a motion. Someone's,
So move.
yeah, one more.
And staying within,
Staying within the
budget.
budget. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah,
Yes.
so move.
So move. Second, John. Second by Ethan. Okay, any other comments from the board? Okay, comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, this is an additional item. We have item H, appointment for alternate to the zoning hearing board. We did get a resume from Scott Augsburger. Dave, you shared that with us. He's willing to serve as an alternate to the zoning hearing board. We've had a need. It looks like he's been a longtime resident of East Lampeter Township, Lancaster County, business owner, farmer, and he likes motorcycles, so it's a good thing. Okay, any other comments from the board before I accept the motion to approve his appointment? Okay. Second. Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor for the appointment of Scott Augsburger to the zoning hearing board as an alternate, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, Scott, for serving. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 10 managers report, A, Lincoln Highway Streetscape Plan implementation.
Sure, just a few things to report on. Staff recently had meetings with representatives of PennDOT and separate meeting with representatives from South Central Transit regarding the design progress on our Phase 3 project, which is that area east of Dutch Wonderland and Tanger intersection. I thought that the meetings went well and will allow us to continue to make progress on that design moving towards permitting. So we're happy about that. We also, as was indicated earlier, provided comments to the design engineer on the Western Gateway project. And we have a virtual meeting with them on March the 10th to go over those comments and hopefully resolve some additional issues there. Finally, we did have steering committee and stakeholder meetings on the branding, gateway, and wayfinding program. And I thought they've gone well. There is one more that's being scheduled as sort of a makeup. So anybody who wasn't able to participate in either of them before, we'll get that information out to those that weren't able to and give you the opportunity to join in that makeup session. So far, I think it's gone very well. The consultants very well engaged, and we expect it to move forward on schedule. We also had township staff participated in a virtual meeting with High and their design engineer recently. We're going over design elements related to the pathway itself in the area of Oak Grove Drive, where there's some refinement being done there. We're confirming that the cross-section for the pathway is going to be a 16-foot wide paved surface with 2-foot shoulders on either side of that paved surface. Basically, it'll provide 10 feet for bicycles, 5 in each direction, and 6 feet for pedestrians. That is consistent with what was recommended by the plan for the GLHP, so that's what's going forward. They are going to be providing us soon with updated construction cost estimates, of which we will need in order to prepare applications for grant funding. So we're looking at a variety of different possible grant funding sources, and there are some windows opening up for those applications. So we hope to make sure that we hit those windows with good applications. And we've also been told that all of the funding needed for the construction of the Walnut Street extension has been obtained.
Great,
So that's moving forward as well.
great. Okay.
Great.
Any other questions for staff? For those on the Zoom, any comments from the public? Okay. I do see in our packet, we did receive some budget information. Looks like real estate taxes received and transfer taxes are up substantially, frankly, compared to last calendar year at the same time. So I don't know if that's a sign of strength or just timing, but good to see nonetheless.
Yeah, Chris at the Tax Collection Bureau is doing some additional analysis. He's not sure that it's,
Right.
An absolute indicator, but it is a positive sign.
Definitely.
And so I think we are getting off to a decent start in this first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see real estate, at least residential real estate, moving extremely quickly in our neighborhood, in East Lampeter. I mean,
We're talking about transfer tax.
both
Yeah.
appear to be up, both the transfer tax and just real estate taxes being paid early,
Yeah.
so it's good. Okay, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ethan, second by Dave. Okay, any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you so much.